Oh, hello everyone. Please note, as this is a public meeting, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the City of Beaverton's website. Minutes are still being taken as well. Please make sure you are muted unless you are the active speaker. Attendees are automatically muted. For any quick comments, you can hold the spacebar to unmute and release the spacebar to unmute it again. Please be aware of items in your video background which could be offensive or distracting to others. You can select the virtual background in the drop-down list next to the video icon. For our attendees, you can type your questions in the question and answer chat. All questions will be addressed during a public comment time on the schedule. And if you would prefer, you can also click the raise hand button to ask your question directly, and we'll make sure to come around to you as soon as we are able to. For any attendees who are joining by phone, you can raise your hand by typing *9. If we have multiple people waiting to speak, the order of who will be speaking will be put in the chat box. You are welcome to have open discussion chat feature at the bottom of your screen, but please be aware that chat becomes public record. I will be monitoring the chat, so feel free to let me know if you have any technical difficulties and I can troubleshoot with you.
Okay, well, welcome. This is a joint meeting of the City of Beaverton's Bicycle Advisory Committee and Climate Action Task Force. I'm Jean Senechal Biggs. I am the staff liaison for the Bicycle Advisory Committee. I work here at City of Beaverton in the Community Development Department. I'm the Transportation Planning Manager. And I'm gonna hand it over to Kevin Boylan to introduce himself.
Sure thing. Thanks, Jean. My name is Kevin Boylan. I am an analyst with the city's sustainability program, and I'm also the staff liaison for the Climate Action Task Force. And I think I'll just jump right in with the first item on the list, which is kind of an explanation for why we're having this joint meeting. I think this is definitely the first time the Climate Action Task Force has done it. I think it's kind of a first across the board for boards and commissions and different advisory groups meeting with each other. So the Climate Action Task Force, even though it was formed last summer, has been using the past couple of months to organize itself and find its footing and pick leaders and whatnot. And so 2022 is really year one for them. And I think I can speak for all of them that they're excited to dive in and that there's a lot of learning to be done, and that the group is looking forward to learning about the work of the city and about the work of other boards and commissions and how those groups have approached their role and found success. The Climate Action Task Force is linked pretty strongly to the Beaverton Climate Action Plan, which I think it was last month I came and presented to the Bicycle Advisory Committee on. And you might remember from that presentation that the BCAP has a really big scope. So when and where there are connections present, it really makes sense for this group to tap into those connections to help them tackle it. I'm going to share my screen just real quick for 1 second. I'm going to share screen 2 over here. Thanks for bearing with me. So you can see this graph, yeah. So yeah, this is the emissions in Beaverton. So I like to show this because we can't talk about reducing emissions without talking about transportation, right? It's the largest source, and we can't talk about reducing transportation emissions without talking about active transportation and bicycling and all of that good stuff. So that's kind of one thing that we're here to talk about tonight, and just making these connections. I have on this other little slide just something I sketched out, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's just to demonstrate all of the connectivity between climate change, transportation, biking, and some of the solutions and problems involved. So that's really why we're here tonight. And with that, I think we're gonna head off to the next agenda item. So I will stop sharing my screen and find my agenda, which is rapid introductions. So there are a lot of people in the room, which is exciting, but also takes a lot of time to do intros. So we're gonna do this thing where we pretend we're actually in a room like we would have been 2 years ago, and thrown a ball like across a circle or something, and whoever catches it has to answer with their name, their organization. It's all right here on the screen. So I've already gone. So I am going to throw the ball to Maggie because I see her on my screen right now.
Yeah, hi, I'm Maggie Myers with the Climate Action Task Force and climate activist with the Sunrise Movement. I also work for New Seasons Market. Yeah, I think that's it for me. I'm going to pop it over to Leah.
Hi, I'm Leah Beata Lewis on the Climate Action Task Force. I'm also the coordinator for the Beaverton Safe Routes to School program. And I will give it over to Mike Mulligan.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Mulligan. I am the chair currently of the Bicycle Advisory Committee. I work in the health and wellness field, so have an active interest in people being active, using bicycles. I've been on the committee for about 12 years and looking forward to these two groups being able to collaborate a lot in the future. Let's see. I'll hand it off to Sean.
Caught me by surprise there, Mike. I'm John Vogler. I've been on the Bicycle Advisory Committee for a little over 2 years, and I'm also affiliated with the Salmonberry Trail Foundation, and looking forward to tonight's meeting. Oh, I guess toss it over to, oh gosh, Kevin.
Did I hear that it got tossed back to me? I'm gonna toss it on to Leah.
Oh, I already went. So I will toss it over to Amanda Kay.
Jean, I'm gonna recommend that you stop sharing your screen just so everyone can see who's here easier.
I'm Amanda Koppel. This is my 4th year on the Bicycle Advisory Committee. I'm the current vice chair, and I am acting as our recorder for another month in addition. And I am an agricultural research scientist, and I just love being outside and love cycling. I'm going to toss it over to Bruce.
Good evening, I'm Bruce Barbarash, Tualatin Hills Park and Rec District. I'm the Nature and Trails Manager. I'm a bicycle rider and I coordinate the Park District's climate action work. So I wanted to see how I could tie all the worlds together. And I'm gonna pass it on to Reggie.
Thanks, Bruce. My name is Reggie Frumkin and I'm on the Climate Action Task Force. I'm participating because I am a lifelong Beaverton resident and I really want to start working on securing a better future now while, I still have many more years of my life here. So I have a lot of ideas that I want to contribute to the city, and the Climate Action Task Force is a really good platform to collaborate with other community members. I'm the vice chair of the Highland Neighborhood Association Committee, and I've been a board member with them since 2015. And I currently volunteer for the nonprofit Friends of Trees. I do this in Beaverton, as well as other neighborhoods across the Portland metro region. I help lead crews of volunteers during planting events, and I also prune young trees to kind of help improve their structure and make them more resilient. For 2022, I'm hoping that the City of Beaverton elected officials and staff will work together to enact short-term, middle, and long-term changes to tree codes so that ultimately we have an increase in the urban tree canopy rather than one that is decreasing. And I'll throw the ball over to Brianna.
Hi, my name is Rena McKnight. I am on the Climate Action Task Force, and I joined I've been trying to get more involved, and so I've been taking a few avenues to get more involved, and this is one that I'm passionate about. I'm going to toss it over to Michael.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Hashizume. I'm on the Bicycle Advisory Committee. I think this is my 5th year. And a big part of why I decided to get involved on this committee is the sort of climate aspect of cycling and active transportation. So I'm really excited that these two groups could get together. I'm going to toss it over to Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren Booth. I'm on the Climate Action Task Force. I joined because I also just wanted to become more active in this area that I'm passionate about. I work as a nonprofit executive director in health and well-being. And I will pass it to Reed.
Hi, I'm Catherine Reed. I go by Reed, and I'm on the Climate Action Task Force, and I am an environmental science teacher with the Beaverton School District. And I will pass it on to Syed.
Hello, my name is Syed Qasim. I am the co-chair of Beaverton Climate Action Task Force with Maggie and Freddie. I work as a technology consultant on the side. So I try to do a lot of community engagement. Happy to be here. I think what I'm looking forward to this year is, catching up and getting a lot of work that we have ahead of us going and building very critical partnerships and relationships with groups such as yourself. I will pass it on to, looking who might not have gone, Ananda.
Hi, my name is Ananda Vardhana, and I'm an Intel retiree, and I've been with the BSc for the past 1 year. This is my 2nd year. I'm also a hike leader at the Mazamas, so I'm practically either hiking or biking. I've been doing it for the past 50-60 years. Thank you. So I'll pass it on to Chuan Xu.
I'm talking about me.
Yes. Sorry, I pronounced your name wrong, probably. Sorry.
My name is Chuan Xu. So I am the first year member of Bicycle Advisory Committee. I participate because I believe cycling is a good alternative way to reduce the greenhouse emission. And I myself work with analog device in Beaverton office. And that's it. I'd like to pass on to Katie Carrick.
Katie, you're on mute.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, muted it. I have a newborn here, so that's why I've got my camera off most of the time. But my name is Katie Carrick. I'm on the Climate Action Task Force, and I do some work over at OHSU in their cytogenetics department. And I'm a genetic counseling student, but I'm also a mom of now 3. And that's my real driving force, is to find ways for parents in particular and families in Beaverton to lower our carbon emissions in a practical and realistic way. So I will pass it on to Rebecca. Have you gone? Okay, to Rebecca.
Thanks, Katie. My name is Rebecca Schell. I'm a task force member, climate action task force member. I'm also a marine biologist and environmental scientist, and I do a lot of work in environmental justice. So that's my primary driver in joining the task force, is to find the relationship between our goals in the climate action plan and the diversity and equity goals that Beaverton has been careful to work into all of the rest of the plans, that's as far as I have seen. I'm also active in the Beaverton schools in both capacities in terms of D&I and green environmental science education, particularly at ISB and Highton, where my kids go. I'm also a mom of 3, so I will pass it. It is getting harder to find people who haven't gone, but I see Jennifer down there. I don't think I've seen Jennifer go.
Hi, I'm Jennifer MacDonald. I joined the Climate Action Task Force so I could have input on some policies that the city is wanting to or is in the process of introducing for climate, environmental justice, and so on. I'm also a member of the Washington County OLCV committee and 350 PDX Washington County team. So I thought this would be a good third leg of the stool to be involved in. And I will pass it. I think Raven hasn't gone yet.
Thank you. I'm Raven Rodriguez. I am a climate activist and employee relations professional at a local nonprofit. My main goal for being here is really to get the public informed and involved around the climate crisis. I'm particularly passionate around the subject of food. Goal for 2022 is just to see some successful, measurable outcomes with this team. Maggie, have you gone yet?
Sorry, yes, I already went, Raven. I think
I'm losing track at this point. So many people have gone.
It's hard. We have, I think, Ashley or Megan.
Thank you. Ashley?
Yeah, thanks, Raven. Thanks, Maggie, for keeping track. I'm Ashley Hartmeyer-Prigg. My pronouns are she, her. I am a Beaverton City Councilor and the Councilor Liaison to the Climate Action Task Force, as well as the Human Rights Advisory Commission. Also a lifelong Beaverton resident, and I am a software product manager by day. And I'm here because your voice matters, and council really needs to hear from all of our amazing committee members as we are making policy. And I want our policy to be built in the foundation of our community voices and experiences so that they're equitable. And I really believe you can change the world through policy, and that local is where it begins. So thank you all for your time helping work with staff and advise our council on all these important issues. And I'll pass it to Megan.
Is that me? I'm just here to support all of you. I'm with the city of Beaverton. I'm a support specialist, and I just help Jean with the bicycle advisory committee. So just here to possibly help you if you have any technical problems. I'll go ahead and pass it to Katie.
Oh, thank you. Hi. Yeah, so hard to keep track of who hasn't gone. So I'm Katie Standish, she, her, and by day I teach chemistry at PCC Sylvania. So my background really is in education, STEM education. My kids are at Vos Elementary, so I am also in it for them as well. And I've just been starting to get into organizing and advocating over the past couple of years. I do a little bit of work with my faculty union as well. And this is something that I'm very passionate about, the environment, and especially with the education side of that. So thanks to all of you that are here.
I'm going to let Turner speak because he's been so patiently waiting. He may be our last.
I think so, if I've counted all the Hollywood squares here correctly. My name's Turner Odell. I'm a member of neither advisory group. I am been working with Kevin and with the Climate Action Task Force to help them kind of get rolling, figure out how they're going to work together, get some leadership structure in place, and that sort of thing. I work for the Oregon Consensus Program at Portland State University. We're part of the National Policy Consensus Center, and we do a lot of different types of work to support what we would call collaborative governance efforts. So working with stakeholders and citizens and their various government entities to problem solve and get good stuff done. So thanks. I'll throw it back to whoever takes the next agenda item, I guess.
I saw Gene unmuted, but I was just gonna pass it on. Next on the agenda, we were just gonna kind of review for everyone in the room the different duties of both the Climate Action Task Force and the Bicycle Advisory Committee, because you all might not be familiar with what each group is doing. And for that, I'd like to introduce Syed and Amanda, representatives from each group, to go over the respective duties of each. So Amanda, maybe you want to go first, because it's this is your all's room that we're in.
Okay, sorry, it takes me a while to unmute because I'm furiously typing meeting minutes and I have 4 different windows open right now. So powers and duties of the Bicycle Advisory Committee as set forth in the Beaverton Code. The purpose of our board is 1, to focus on the promotion, education, and safety of bicycling and related modes of active transportation in and around the city of Beaverton. 2, to provide city council and city staff with perspective of bicyclists and active transportation users on significant public and private plans and development projects regarding bicycle and related active transportation circulation, access, and general use when appropriate. And finally, 3, to provide city council and city staff with input and evaluation of existing active transportation infrastructure from the standpoint of public need, and to recommend development priorities in alignment with the active transportation plan and Beaverton Community Vision Plan. So in our listed powers and duties, you can see that we're already fairly interdisciplinary, and a lot of our work really does focus on providing feedback to people from all over different parts of city and regional government and community services.
All right, thank you, Amanda. So well articulated, it feels like a hard act to follow, but I just want to set up for us that the Beaverton Climate Action Task Force is neither a committee nor a commission. So we are our own unique unicorn of sorts. The intention of the task force is, if for those who are maybe familiar, back in November 2019, Beaverton adopted the Beaverton Climate Action Plan, which was designed to be proactive to tackle and combat climate change. So with the task force, where the intention is to kind of translate and create a more proactive approach and strategy to enable the city and the local government and relevant bodies and organizations in helping implement some of that. So at a high level, if I were to bullet it, it's to assist in devising strategies that allows the city council and, again, relevant bodies to include climate action, provide feedback on community perspectives, communicate climate action across the community, enhance, recommend, and educate, and raise council awareness on policies and recommendations from that climate lens. So in summary, that's really where we are coming from. Again, this is our first year, so we are still storming and forming and hoping to learn and lean on your experience as we move forward. Thank you.
All right, so I think it is back to me. Thank you both for that explanation. Much appreciated. I just wanted to add in this little segment before we move on about connections to various other plans. We've already kind of mentioned the big picture role of like biking and active transportation in relation to reducing emissions and the BCAP and whatnot. I went through the BCAP. I'm gonna share my screen again. So you all can see that this slide over here, right? Thumbs up, verbal yes. I can't see you all. Okay, thank you. So this is just connections from the BCAP that I pulled out between, I mean, there's a whole transportation chapter in the BCAP, right? It's a big portion of the plan. And so these, I think like 5 or 6 actions here kind of specifically address topics that both of these groups would be interested in. So I just wanted to highlight them. I can read down them real quick. No one really likes when anyone reads off a screen, but it's mainly like about promoting other forms of transportation and how that connects with public transport, last mile connectivity, bicycle and pedestrian gaps, supporting the continued implementation of the active transportation plan and bike and pedestrian friendly transportation, safer and more welcoming streets, and supporting the Safe Routes to Schools program. So again, just highlighting some of those connections and where the two groups might be able to work together. And I also did a similar exercise for the diversity, equity, and inclusion plan that the city has. So these are several actions from the DEI plan that overlap in some way or another with actions from the climate action plan. And then some of them, like particularly prioritizing key infrastructure down there at the bottom, that might be something that also relates to both of these groups as well. And then some things that just really relate to all projects citywide. So I just wanted to point out some of those connections, and then there are many, many other plans, including the active transportation plan and the TSP, which I will just let Jean briefly describe any connections she wants to highlight or how in the future those could be kind of teased out as those plans are updated and whatnot. So I'll stop sharing.
Great, thank you, Kevin. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, so bear with me. So Kevin alluded to the TSP, the Transportation System Plan, and you heard a few folks, or sorry, not a few, you heard when Amanda was sharing what the purpose of the Bicycle Advisory Committee is, what's in their bylaws. And you also heard about the Active Transportation Plan, and that has a strong influence in the Bicycle Advisory Committee's role. So just sort of along that same line, in terms of a TSP, I have to move you all over. I brought up just a slide here to share with all of you in terms of what is it. It is a regulatory document. It's the transportation element of our comprehensive plan for the city of Beaverton. And really it sets a vision for our community, focused in on transportation systems, and really in Beaverton that is meant to be multimodal, and it's based on community values. It describes our system through various lenses around projects, programs, and policies. And it also includes a finance plan that talks about how we manage our system and how we meet our needs and how we pay for it. And as I said, it's a regulatory document. It's consistent with regional and state plans. There's coordination that happens for Beaverton between Washington County and Metro. So I'm going to go to another slide. So that's the TSP, and switch. If I can find it, hold on. Here we go. So the Active Transportation Plan is what we might call sort of a modal plan that in a way nests into the TSP. And this is a plan that is focused on walking, biking, and rolling here in Beaverton. It has some visions and goals that are described really right at the front of the plan. But it's really about sort of safety and connectivity and making it possible for walking and biking, you know, a choice and an option for trips up to 3 miles. So that's really the vision. There's a series of goals that we talk about in terms of access. Equity is very much a part of the active transportation plan. And I know that's something that you all on the Climate Action Task Force also think about. You know, we want a system that's comfortable for all users, that's safe for everyone. And then also just put us in a place where we actually have this plan that we can implement and we're competitive for the grants and other sources of funds that are available to build this this kind of infrastructure. So I'll stop there. And yeah, hopefully that gives you all some context. You know, we have various plans and policies that City Council as our, you know, adopts that really guide the work that we do here at City of Beaverton. So any questions for Kevin or I? You just raise your hand or your real hand or your virtual hand. Okay. I don't see any. Great. Kevin, what's next?
Next up, we have Mike, who was going to give kind of a abridged version of the annual presentation for the Bicycle Advisory Committee, share that with the Climate Action Task Force.
Perfect. Thanks, Kevin and Jean. Let me try to share this with you here. Is it opening up? It does not seem to be doing it.
Does Megan need to let you share your screen? Megan, if you can hear us, can you?
Yeah, I shouldn't need to, but
okay.
I'm just gonna make you a co-host, Mike, so maybe that'll make it easier. All right. You should have a share screen button bottom
Yeah,
center.
and it's coming up with saying desktop and there's an exclamation point. So maybe it's
okay. How about I do it? I've got it ready, Mike.
I will talk to it.
It's good that we have this backup plan. We have a backup plan. Okay. Here we go.
All right, perfect. So as Amanda and Jean shared a lot of sort of our purpose and what we were tasked with, and I thought it'd be good just to kind of briefly go over the report that we gave to council in December, which really kind of articulates and gives examples of how we've met what we're tasked with doing. So we can go to the next slide. These are some great examples of our purpose in being able to provide that valuable feedback from the bicyclists and the active transportation users to the regional agencies, to the city, to THPRD. Just a few examples. We've been involved in the downtown loop, which is ongoing in planning and looking forward to that actually taking place. And so we've been involved in providing the city with input there. THPRD, Bruce has been to our meetings on a number of occasions, and we provided him with feedback on potential policies, what they want to look at with e-bikes as another example. Also, Washington County's complete streets guidelines. Washington County came to us, and again, we're able to provide them with some good insight. Our next slide. One of the things I think we're really proud of is that one of our board members, I think it was John, that had brought the idea of really trying to put more bike repair stations in the city, as if people are going to be using bikes, being able to have easy access to repair tools to work on those bikes. And so this is something that we worked on along with Bruce and THPRD, and actually got funding in this year's budget to be able to install, I think, 2 new bike repair stations in the Beaverton area. Also, when the pandemic occurred, we were getting ready for Bike Beaverton, and it had to be postponed for now 2 years. And one of the things we did was actually have our members go out and come up with routes that families could go and explore safely on their own, and put those on the city website. So we still kept the spirit of Bike Beaverton going. One of the other really interesting projects that is in the process of being looked at and planned is a West Side Trail Bridge. They'll go across 26. And so THPRD's planners have come to us, and we provided a lot of feedback, and in fact provided a letter of support for this bridge. And then also providing feedback and support to propose BIPOC ride in Beaverton. And that's something I think that's ongoing with the group, and potentially trying to bring that about. And go next one. Also, we're really proud, and Leah has been involved with this with us, is our involvement with the Safe Routes to School. Is we were named the Walk and Roll Champions in 2021, and a number of our members came out for bike rodeos with kids in the Beaverton School District to really provide that guidance and going through the instruction, and really working on having the next generation of active cyclists in our community. When we look towards this year in 2022, some of the main points we want to focus on is May 22nd, we are planning for Bike Beaverton to make its return. And this would probably be a great opportunity, again, for our communities to work together with having your group there to be able to share information and get feedback from the community. And hopefully that'll have a good turnout, as I think one of the first real events that the city will be putting on. One of the other things that we do is work up towards the League of American Bicyclists being a bike-friendly community. We're going to be looking at our new application this year. The city has a map called the Beaverton Bike Map. It needs to be updated, and we'll be involved with that to be able to have that map ready for Bike Beaverton. Another project that our group has done is called Why We Ride. It's just kind of been an outreach where we've looked to get input from members of the community on why do they ride bikes, and looking to be able to share that information through a number of different media sources within the city to share that and get, again, advocate for cycling and sharing those stories. And we're just going to continue being those advisors on policies and programs and projects to the city, the county, other entities, really being able to provide that on the street input from that perspective. Jean had mentioned the active transportation plan. This really has been an area that we've had great interest and have given a lot of input to, and have also been continuing to spur the city and the council to move forward and try to implement this as much as we feasibly can. Particularly are the neighborhood bikeways and the wayfinding signage. Is that it's a relatively low cost, and really is a way that we can encourage people in their neighborhoods, showing them routes, really showing ways that people can start using their bikes for practical purposes, and giving them routes that are going to be low traffic, and really be able to encourage people of all levels to be able to start using their bikes for those normal errands that they may run, typically using a motor vehicle. We again see ourselves as really being the #1 resource to be able to give feedback. So as projects are being looked at, being able to give that input on the plans, but also as things are being implemented, being able to give that feedback, actually being able to go out into the field and give that perspective of what we think from the eyes of a cyclist. And then also continuing to provide input on the capital improvement plan, the priorities for active transportation, being that voice that's encouraging that for the city. I had mentioned the bike-friendly community. This is one of the areas that we really want to focus on here in 2022. We renew this every 3 years. Beaverton is currently a silver status. We're one of only 12 of bike-friendly communities in the entire state of Oregon. And we really see this as a tool that the city can use to market ourselves to prospective businesses, prospective new residents, and we want to try to encourage this to be used more. Our goal is to move up to the gold status, and when they do, the League of American Bicyclists do their evaluation, they provide feedback, and really it's kind of a roadmap of here are things that you should look at, try to implement to increase your status. So that's one of the things we'll be doing in 2022 is looking how have we been doing those, really been working to try to sell the story of Beaverton and what we are doing for as far as making it a great city to ride in and hopefully be able to increase our ranking. And lastly, the slide we included when we made our presentation to the City Council was making this connection between the Climate Action Plan and our community, or excuse me, our committee. And really seeing that community well-being, I think there's a connection with livability, the health and the safety through cycling, through active transportation, seeing that as really being a very viable alternative to motor vehicles. And so that's why we encourage the council to give their blessing, if you will, to this collaboration that we're having tonight. And I'm looking forward again to seeing how we can continue to grow this. I think that pretty much covered it. Questions at all? All right, Kevin, move forth.
I'll ask the quick question.
Okay.
I'm just wondering how you all go about soliciting the responses for Why I Ride. I feel like getting info from the community is probably something that the task force might be interested in hearing how you all.
Sure, that's a great question. This initiated when we had our last Bike Beaverton in 2019, and we had a member of our community or our committee that was really interested in that. And so we actually worked with the city to be able to have some of the marketing team there to be able to film little clips of individuals. So we're basically doing interviews during the event, being able to kind of get that input. It has been a little chat. We haven't really done more with it during the pandemic, but I think it's something as we look towards more face-to-face interactions, we'll be looking at other directions that we can take it for getting that input.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I am going to kick it over to Maggie, who has volunteered to lead the discussion portion of this evening's event amongst you all. So yeah, I'll stop talking. Maggie.
Great, thanks, Mike, for the presentation. I think a lot of great context was just provided there for this discussion. In crafting the agenda for this meeting, Kevin and the Climate Action Task Force leadership team met with Mike and Amanda and Jean. And I think it was Jean that suggested beginning the conversation with answering why are we here? And I thought that was really, I just thought that was really great way to start things. And we kind of talked about some common interests between our groups. A couple of things that really stood out to me: transportation and the huge amount of carbon emissions that represents, promoting active transportation for the health of our community and the planet, and addressing barriers to active transportation. So things where both of our groups are probably concerned with all of those things. And I think Kevin already covered some of the points of common interest in the Beaverton Climate Action Plan. There's a few more action items that we potentially could look at working together on, which I won't read them all to you, but 58, 59, 60, and 61 are some potential collaboration items. And so a couple of other things that we had talked about as far as how we could practically work together would be things like joint presentations and recommendations to city staff and collaborating on events, which Mike just talked about, the Bike Beaverton. So I feel like a lot of the context was just provided. So I think we could probably just open it up for discussion and just hear some ideas about where our two groups think we could collaborate.
Thanks, Maggie, for getting the ball rolling. In order to avoid the awkward silence, I'm just gonna keep moving it forward. I think when we met, as Maggie pointed out, with Mike and Amanda, one of the things that I'd called out, given the tenure of the Bicycle Advisory Committee and the fact that we're very new, anything that you guys have learned from your experience in terms of what works, what doesn't work, right? Like where or how to potentially, as we collate and put together, whether it's recommendations or any kind of presentation. I know we have like 9 minutes, but would love to hear if there are any points of views on what we should know as a newer task force.
Like I said, one of the things I would say is how we can help get those connections to other agencies, city, county, being able to have dialogue. So whether there's opportunities to invite individuals from those entities to come and discuss this plan. And I guess, Bruce, whether that would be something that with THPRD, if there's a way to get involvement there, if you come to one of their meetings and just, again, talk about ways that maybe you can be collaborating. Where'd Bruce go?
I'm still here. I'm
okay. Oh, there you go.
Happy to come to one of the, any of the meetings, and I'm communicating occasionally with Kevin as well, because the Park District fits in with the Beaverton Climate Action Plan in multiple ways, in addition to the transportation and our natural resources side and water management side too. So we're super interested.
John, do you want to go? You've got your hand up.
Yes. Actually, in the beginning, I see there's a very good graph from Kevin. In the beginning, there's a presentation. It shows how many the emissions from cars, from the house, and from many things. It's a very good graph, and I think maybe we can make some booklet during our Bike Beaverton, for example, the Bike Beaverton. During that event, we can hand all those booklets to all the participants for about those data. I think that will get all many Beaverton residents to understand what is the impact on each of the items, such as if you drive 1,000 miles, what is the emission? If you eat 1 pound of beef, for example, what is the emission? And if you drive, instead of the regular car, if you drive an electric car, what is the emission? So I think that will be the data will be very clear to all the residents.
Great suggestion, Sean. We'll put it on the list. We'll think about that for sure.
And just to quickly tag on with that, I wonder if you could make some correlations between the number of people that participate in Bike Beaverton and how far they ride. What's the reduction, just like in their carbon footprint, of if they had done it in a car or something like that, whether you could just make some kind of comparisons between what we're doing on the ride and
Great. An on-site carbon calculator.
Yeah, it's something that I guess
Punch
kind
in
of,
your address and find out how much you saved
yeah,
by riding
something-
your bike to Bike Beaverton.
It's kind of like the library does that, you know, how much you save by going to the library. It's really tangible. It's kind of cool. Or like how much you'd save by, like maybe do something interactive, like from your address to downtown or to school or whatever. I don't know. I like those ideas.
Yeah, fun. Other ideas, thoughts, anything even close to the topic? Rebecca.
It's more a question than it is a comment. I'm wondering if you have demographic data on who rides in Beaverton, and if you use those data points to advise on plans, not just age, but also race. And I'm wondering if there's been consideration on the placement of bike lanes, for example, to better enable all populations in the city to access those areas. I know my particular neighborhood is very hilly, so it's going to be a challenge to encourage anyone to bike even 1.5 miles or 2 miles. And so I guess I'm just wondering if you have usage data that supports whether it's mostly single adults or mostly families living in flatter neighborhoods. I don't even know what I'm really asking specifically, but it'd be interesting to consider the demographics of who was already using what we have in store and how to either choose between either enhancing those resources because they're well used, and then alternatively how to better expand to enable demographics that aren't yet using the resources we have.
Yeah, those are great comments and a great line of thinking. I'm going to try to answer your question in ways. So there's various tools that we use when we're doing planning work, and I'm going to start by saying I was not involved in the development of the active transportation plan. I've been at the city for about 2.5 years, almost 3 years. So it predates me, as well as our TSP predates me by a lot. And in fact, our TSP is really quite out of date, and we are looking forward to and hoping to be able to start work on an update to that plan in the next fiscal year. Probably from about a year-ish from now, we'll be kicking that work off. So future planning, there's quite a bit of data that is available now, particularly now that we have census data that is so mapped well. So we'll definitely be pulling that in. There's also modeling tools that we use in transportation, and I'm not going to be super articulate on it, but in our region, we actually have a very good model, and I'm forgetting the name of it, but it's based on survey data from people and like writing what you do a whole week and where you go. Does it have race data? I would like to think it does. I know that there's going to be some work at the regional level to update it, and I'm fairly certain they would not leave race out, but I can't speak with certainty. That's work that Metro, our regional government, leads. So looking forward, I think there's lots of data that we can and will want to tap into. I can't speak so much to the past just because I'm not as, articulate and wasn't around during the development of them. But even in particular, when we're looking at where to make investments, there's definitely, at least in terms of federal funds and federal transportation funds that come through the region, there is a very strong emphasis as we're competing for those funds that were, areas where we have higher numbers of people who are BIPOC, limited, what's what I'm looking for, people with lower incomes. Those are areas that we want to see more investments in, the right kind of investments to help them get around and, open those doors to opportunity. So I'll stop there. I'll let John chime in with his question. Thanks for the question, Rebecca. John.
Thanks. Thanks for that, Jean. And I just wanted to reinforce I could, Rebecca's comment. I think some type of counting data on the Tualatin Hills trails and also some of the busier corridors, like Murray and others, would really help enlighten people. I remember when they put the counter in on the Hawthorne Bridge, and I recall, they hit a peak of 8,300 people in one day went across the Hawthorne Bridge. And if you work that out, that's like every 20 seconds, somebody's going across that bridge on a bike. And it's just kind of eye-opening. I think it would be really enlightening for everybody just to see the total volume. And of course, it would be great if we could translate that into, pounds of carbon saved. But at least just having the raw data out there. And I know Bruce has offered in the past and noted here in the comments that there is some of that data available. So why not share it on the Bicycle Advisory Committee and the Climate Action website pages? I think people would find it interesting.
Great, thank you, John. We'll go to Lauren. One thing I will say is that the Bicycle Advisory Committee is going to be hearing more about bike counts later on this spring and summer. So we may circle back with you, Climate Action Task Force people. We may have a volunteer activity for you. So great. Thanks, John. Lauren.
Yeah, similar data question. I love that there's kind of a public campaign to share why people do ride bikes. And I'm wondering if we would want to ask, or if you've already asked, why people aren't riding their bike. And I know there are long-term goals around, road safety, but I'm just wondering if there are tangible behavioral changes that we could inspire, if people aren't riding because they have a fear around riding bikes in traffic, or they have, it's cold or it's wet, or are there little tips and tricks that we can promote to get people to just experiment with bike riding and increase their confidence level? I'm just curious if there's data on why people aren't riding bikes.
I will speak as a transportation professional to say I'm sure there's multiple studies that have been done to survey people, right, to ask that question. Have we done it in Beaverton? No. You intuitively went to a few places, right, where probably people would say rain and clothes and hills, and but there's lots of folks who are enthusiasts and could be encouragists, if that's a word, encouragers. So I think that's a really great sort of frame of reference to help think about, how do we get more people on bikes or any mode of active transportation.
I'd add, Lauren, I agree. There's the real and then the perceived issues of why people might not want to use a bike or other active transportation. One of the things we did mention to the city council when we were doing our presentation was encouraging offering classes, not only with the great work that's done through Safe Route to School, but looking at what can be done as far as education for adults and practical things such as how do I fix a flat, to confidence building classes or things through the League of American Bicyclists. So that's one of the things that would be nice to also look at, is if we can help to lower those barriers that are the physical ones through what we're doing with the transportation planning, but also then trying to address those perceptions of what's safe and building that confidence that people can feel safer on roads and build that, then that would encourage them to get out and use it more often.
Thanks, Michael, or Mike, I should say. So I'm just looking at the time, and I know we both have like our regular meetings to go split off into, but I'm just seeing a few things in the chat. Michael Hashizume is remembering, I think you're remembering right, that the BAC used to include sort of tips and tricks in that Your City newsletter that gets mailed to your home, to everybody in Beaverton. And Bruce had commented on this equally important question of whether there's an equitable geographic distribution of bicycle facilities, for sure. and a lot of seconds to what Rebecca had shared. And also Rebecca captured in the chat a possible avenue for collaboration and an equitable emphasis on diminishment of traffic-related heat and emissions, for sure. And Bruce shared how THPRD does have a handful of counters along their trails. So John, do you still have your hand up, or is that a stray hand?
Stray hand.
Stray hand, okay. So I want to maybe ask our chairs and leadership maybe to close us out. Are we at the end of our, did we get to the end of our agenda? Yeah. Okay, great. Any final thoughts from our chairs?
I think this was a great initial meeting, and I look forward to more collaboration as we go through 2022 and beyond.
Yeah, same. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Great. Thank you all. So Bicycle Advisory Committee, you're going to all stay here. We're going to say goodbye to our climate action friends. We'll see you all hopefully another time soon. Good to see you all.
Yep,
Thanks for having us. Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Here. Okay. We didn't lose anybody. I think we're all still here. Oh, Reggie's still here. Reggie, if you're listening in, you can go off to your meeting. Okay, great.
Maybe we can coach him.
Okay, I think this is everyone. I was looking to see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of you, correct? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so just I'll quick call the roll, or at least call out who's absent. So I had heard from Annie, Michael Dunlevy, and Amy Browning that they wouldn't be joining us this evening. And it looks like we're missing both of the Corys and Nathaniel as well. So, okay, Amanda's got it. Great. Okay, and I think we still have our couple of guests. Yeah, James Terwilliger and Preston. So welcome to the two of you. I will go ahead and pull up our regular agenda. We've already done our intros, so we don't need to do the thing again, the Megan's wonderful Zoom meeting reminders. Mike, I think it's your job to call us to order.
I will call our committee to order for our meeting here in February, and let's move right to the approval of our December minutes.
Yes, and that's my mistake, my bad. It's actually the January minutes. I
That's
forgot to
right.
change
Sorry.
that. So here we are.
I just read, I don't think.
Yeah, that's okay. Great.
And a reminder that whoever motions to approve and seconds, someone will need to say their names out loud because I am in Word, not Zoom.
Thank you, Amanda.
And thank you, Amanda, for doing this for the last couple of months here. It's been great. Any additions, changes, corrections, anybody? It's seen. All right, I will entertain. Would someone like to make a motion to approve our minutes from January?
I move to approve. This is Michael Hashizume.
And do I have a second? John is seconding the motion for the approval of our January minutes. Everybody hold up your real or virtual hand to approve. And right, and Ananda, I think you were not here in January, so we'll have you abstain. But everyone else has approved them, so we can say that that's been done. All right, we've got a moment here for public comments. So for our friends that have stuck around from our combined meeting, welcome again. And any questions or things that you want to share with the committee, this would be a great time. And I'm sure we could open it up so you can join and do that.
Yeah, if you'd like to make a talk to the committee, just put your name in the chat or raise your virtual hand and we'll let you in. I'll give you a sec to do that. Yes, James Terwilliger. Okay. Megan, if you're there, if you can promote James, or Mike, you might be able to if you know how to do it. Oh, Megan's on it. Great, thank you. Here he comes.
I think I did that correctly. Hello.
You did. Hello, we can hear you.
So hi, my name is James Terwilliger. I'm recently coming back to Beaverton from having lived in Redmond, Washington for the last 12 or 13 years, but I grew up in Beaverton. My mother was the chair of the Beaverton Arts Commission. I grew up and graduated from Beaverton High School with James Erickson as my theater director. I've got a long history in town, and I'm just looking forward to some opportunities to maybe help give back to my hometown. So my intent is to apply for the one of the midterm vacancies.
Terrific. Well, welcome. Welcome home.
Feel free to kick me out again.
Okay, and it looks like Preston is also raising his hand. So Megan, if you can let Preston in. Here he comes.
Hi, similarly, hey there. Similarly, I'm a, geez, what now, 26-year resident of Beaverton, avid cyclist my whole life, hit by a car in 2008 on Mulligan and Murray. So I have a pretty interesting investment in like making our streets safer. And I just wanted to kind of observe and kind of see what you guys do.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Perfect. Well, I think then, Jean, that takes us to the officer elections, which you are leading.
Great. Well, here we are. It's a new calendar year, and you all get to choose your leadership for 2022. So we talked about this at last month's meeting, and we'll go through this, the nominating and election process in the order of chair and then vice chair and then recorder. So we do this very simply. We just take nominations from the floor. We'll ask for all the nominations and then we'll check in and see if that person does indeed want to accept the nomination. They need to say yes before we can vote. And then you all will vote. So hopefully we'll make this pretty simple and easy tonight. So I'm going to start with chair. Looking for nominations for chair for the Bicycle Advisory Committee. Mike.
I would like to nominate Amanda to move from vice chair to chair of our committee.
Great. Okay, Amanda. Any other nominations? Okay, see none. Amanda, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Okay.
Who are you
Shall
laughing?
Shall we vote?
The chair of the library committee is laughing at me.
They're going to be a power household, I think, by the end of the evening.
I was going to say is it's the council or commission power couple of Beaverton.
Yes. Great. Okay. Well, let's have a vote. All those in favor of Amanda being chair, vote aye. Raise your hand. Okay, great. That looks like that is unanimous. Okay.
I
Congratulations,
abstain.
Amanda. Yes, that's probably a good choice. Okay, now we'll go to the next nominations for vice chair. Do we have a nominee?
I will nominate Michael Hashizume.
Great. Okay. Any other nominees? There was a long silence. I think not. Okay, great. Michael, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I accept.
Excellent. Okay, let's vote. All those in favor of Michael being vice chair, raise your hand.
Aye.
All right, excellent. Another unanimous vote. And thank goodness there's just enough of you here tonight. Okay, recorder is the final position we have to fill. Do we have any nominees for recorder? Okay, I see a lot of silence.
Volunteers.
So volunteers. Okay, anyone want to, you can nominate yourself. Don't be shy. Okay.
Nominate somebody that's not at the meeting.
Oh, we could do that. And I'll vote for them. But I think that's probably not the best solution. We do have a smaller group, but I will tell you, Mike and Amanda and I had huddled on this topic because I will tell you, I hadn't heard from anyone in the past month. So we had wondered if this should happen, what do we do? And a solution may be that you all take turns and take the duty 1 month in the year. So that's what I think we're gonna, at this point, move forward with it. Amanda gets credit for the 2 months she's done this year. And
Michael should get credit for having been a reporter for like 2 years in a row.
Yes, for sure. So what I can do in between now and our next meeting is I'll send out an email to everyone so everyone knows. And then I'll just set up I'll figure out how to set up a spreadsheet that will work for sharing with all of you. And we can just, you all can just sort of take a month and choose a month and put your name in, and we'll take care of it that way. If that sounds reasonable and fair. I see Ananda nodding his head. Thank you. So I think we'll move forward that way. Okay, great. Thank you all. Okay, how are we doing on time?
We are actually ahead of time.
Perfect. I think, are we ready for Dan?
That would be the next item.
Okay. Welcome, Dan.
Oh, hi, Jean. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to come and talk to you guys. First of all, congratulations or condolences, Amanda and Michael. Michael, I ask for your patience in advance. This will be pretty much the same presentation you listened to yesterday. Hopefully I'll do a better job as I'm saying it more. But I'm very happy to talk to you guys. Thank you for giving me the time. Thank you, Jean. And I'm here to talk about the Loop project and where we are with that and to get some good feedback. So without anything else to do, let me start my presentation here. And eager to hear your questions, concerns after that point. Let's see. Thanks for the patience as I set things up here. Can everybody see my screen? Okay. All right. So my name is Dan Turk. I am the project manager of the Beaverton Downtown Loop project. I work with Jean in transportation planning. Very happy to come and talk to you guys. First, I'd like to tell you where we are with the Loop project. We're in the planning phase of the project cycle. We're putting together a plan for what would be the Loop. And I guess it's a little out of order here. The Loop is looking at Hall and Watson, the one-way pair in downtown, and how to improve situation for bicyclists and pedestrians along those routes as a way to connect the downtown. That's on a further slide, but since you guys don't have that context, it's better to say that earlier on. So as part of, in terms of the project cycle, we're at the planning phase. At the end of the planning phase, we hope to have a clear plan or concept as to what we're doing and an implementation program as well, which will be sort of how to stage or prioritize what's going to be done. After that, we move into engineering and construction. Where are we in the planning process? We've done a lot of work already. We've reached out to people to learn more about existing conditions, including yourselves. We've used that information along with information from people about goals of the project. We've developed some design alternatives. We've refined those design alternatives, talking to other people here within the city and partner agencies at the technical level. And we are at the point where we are going around showing people these design alternatives, the refined design alternatives, and getting some feedback. Let me start with what is the goal of our project, or the vision of our project. The vision of our project is a more vibrant downtown. I'm sorry, I'm there. Okay. And the project mission is to achieve that vision by establishing a strong connection between Old Town and Beaverton Central downtown along Hall and Watson, as I said before, by reimagining the streets and sidewalks to better prioritize people walking, biking, and taking transit. The mandate that we have is to significantly improve the environment for those types of users. We've done a lot of community engagement already, both focused engagement, talking to people in one-on-one interviews, and broad reach, such as going to our CAC and groups such as yourselves. We've heard a lot. This is a very small representation of what we've heard. Hold on for just a second, guys. I have my there. I have my voice recognition software on, which, even though it's off, is recording me and flashing on the screen. So I'm sorry. Some of the things that we've heard are the route's not very interesting. Major intersections are scary. It's unsafe and uncomfortable for people with disabilities. Driving conditions are unsafe. It's just not a safe place even for confident or strong bicyclists. And also building a pedestrian bridge to cross Canyon and Farmington. I guess I'll go through this. I apologize. I didn't, this was, you know, I don't know if we heard this from you guys. We heard this, we had some good talk in our CAC about, hey, you know, these intersections at the middle of the loop are a key thing that needs to be overcome to form the loop. Why don't we create some pedestrian bridges? So we had a presentation that we gave to them that was basically, the gist of it was, the bridges that are built these days are multimodal bridges for bikes, pedestrians, what have you. And really they're used to cross significant barriers such as train tracks and freeways that you can't otherwise get over. They're designed to be accessible. They come at a significant cost. And really the gist of it is that these are not, these are a solution to a problem that is different than the one that faces us at the loop. So when we started looking at design alternatives, we were looking at things, basically looking at the street level, where we can change better how we divide up the space and how the space can function between modes of travel or other activities, trying to make a connection, not just getting from point A to point B, but making a place in between at intersections even, and activating the street environment. Upcoming community engagement. February is a big month for us. We're having a virtual open house next week. We're going to open up a survey at that same time where we're trying to get feedback. The same is from you guys on these design alternatives. We welcome you to, after Wednesday, to visit our website and take that survey. And we're doing some focus groups as well. Your role at tonight's meeting is really to just give us honest input. You know, I'll be happy to facilitate to try to understand, you know, really what you value, what your concerns are. You know, it's okay if there's different perspectives, even with a group such as yourselves that is looking to improve bicycle transport. There may be some different perspectives, but really our goal is not to have consensus around one of these alternatives. It's really just to get enough feedback to be able to go back and make a confident decision on a preferred alternative. I'll just keep on going here. So I wanted to start out with this slide because the design alternatives really come from following the principle of designing streets for people, by putting pedestrians and bicyclists first, separating these users from motor vehicles, improving the experience of people riding transit, and creating spaces here. Not just spaces for people to walk, but places to pause. There's good edges. There's activity. There's delight. This is a place where everybody, it's a positive place, and this is what we'd like our downtown to look like. Before we go into the alternatives and what's different between the alternatives, it's important to talk about what they all will have. Remember, the mandate that we have is to significantly improve the situation, the environment for pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit users. So following that, all of these alternatives provide generous and spacious sidewalks, protected, continuous, and consistent bike facilities along the loop, comfortable and safe bus stops, and safer and more pleasant pedestrian bicycle intersection environments. We believe that the design alternatives that we present represent a big vision. And the flip side of that is there's some tough decisions to be made. There's some trade-offs that need to be considered, including involving right-of-way and parking. And for that, we really need to get your feedback about what you most value. So the order of this presentation is I'll present in general some cross sections that'll present from one side of the street to the other, all of the different types of facilities by mode. And then at that point, I'll break down into the facilities of each type, finishing up with intersections. So the existing roadway right now, and anybody that's gone downtown anytime recently, you'll remember things change even mid-block. But on average, the sidewalks are about 9 feet wide. This is from curb to building face. There's usually a parking on either side of the street, and there may or may not be a bike lane that is basically striped in some way, and 2 travel lanes. The first alternative that we came up with is taking one of the parking lanes and using that space to widen the sidewalks on both sides to 12 feet. And allowing a little more space for the bike facility, which would be protected in some way from the vehicles. And later on, we'll look at the different options that we see for the bike facilities, which really vary in the way that they would be protected. And one important thing to note is any of the bicycle options are compatible with any of the overall alternatives or the sidewalk alternatives. So this is alternative A, 12-foot sidewalks on either side. Alternative B is looking at that second lane of parking and saying, let's convert that into wider sidewalk space on both sides to get to 15 feet. The bike lane can have a little bit more space, but would function, again, any of the bike options are interchangeable with the sidewalk cross sections that we have. Alternative C is looking, hey, if we really want a wide sidewalk, let's do as much as we can to get a wider sidewalk. So this is looking asymmetrically at saying, hey, let's have an 18-foot wide sidewalk on the inside of the loop, and then on the other side having a 12-foot sidewalk. So it's really it's taking the width of the 2 parking lanes and dividing it up asymmetrically. The bike lane or the bike facility stays the same on this. And the advantage of this is you create more of a promenade on one side of Hall and Watson, while at the same time on the other side, you still have the 12-foot sidewalk. So those are the 3 alternatives. Just for clarification, the inside of the loop is basically between Hall and Watson. And when we're saying outside, it's east of Hall or west of Watson. Sorry, my computer's a little slow. So one of the things that we did, we came up with the cross sections. We have some other graphics that we can show here about the different types of facilities, but we really did a thorough job in looking at how these cross sections or how these facilities would look in place at the entirety of Hall and Watson. So we have plan drawings at a very rather detailed scale where we've put each of these alternatives superimposing on the existing conditions to see how they would fit or how they would work. And one of the things that quickly became apparent is that there are different opportunities and constraints at pretty much every location, which means there's different choices to make and different trade-offs to consider. Let's now talk about sidewalks and the pedestrian facilities. As I said before, these would be gracious and spacious. They'd be spaces for people, for groups walking together and passing each other, more interaction between buildings and sidewalks, and places for people to gather. One of the things that's very interesting to look at we ask you to look at as you look at these alternatives for sidewalks is that it's, there are different things that can be done for the width of sidewalk. As an example, this is from NACDO, just to give you an idea. One of the purposes of a sidewalk is obviously for people to walk back and forth and get somewhere. And you would think, oh, well, what's the difference between 2 feet? It seems like the sidewalk would function rather the same way. But as you can see, comparing the top row and the bottom row, it's a significantly different environment there for just that function. And as we look at the sidewalk view, or a perspective more from the user's point of view of alternative A, and this is the one with 12-foot sidewalks on both sides, we've divided it up into the 3 different zones that are commonly called in transportation planning for the sidewalk. One of them is this through zone, which is what we were looking at in the previous slide. And then there's a furnishing zone, which is the one nearer to the curb, which is normally where there are trees, vegetative planters, or even sometimes benches. And then on the other side of the sidewalk is a frontage zone, which is kind of the place where you can have things coming out from inside the building, whether they be signs or retail displays or even seating. So this is not to say definitively we're breaking down this into zones and there's going to be lines, but it's just to give you an idea again of the different possible uses for that sidewalk space, so that you can think about, hey, what's the marginal difference of 3 feet could mean a wider through zone, it could mean a wider furnishing zone, could mean a wider frontage zone, and each of those things mean different things. So coming back to alternative A, we're looking at 12 feet of sidewalk where you can have a pedestrian through zone where 2 people can walk side by side, a frontage zone where you can have a limited amount of bench seating, signs, or retail displays. Alternative B, which is 15 feet, you can have a pedestrian through zone where 2 people can walk side by side and comfortably pass other people. You can have a frontage zone where there are 2-person small tables, signs, and retail displays. And then now looking at the 18-foot sidewalks, you could have a through zone where 3 people can comfortably walk side by side and gather, meaning they can just stand there or even sit there in benches and not conflict with people passing through. Or you can have a frontage zone where you can have 4-person tables, significant retail displays. So as you're comparing these alternatives or thinking about it, you can think about the space that's allocated for walking, the space that's allocated for business signage, restaurant or cafe seating. You can think about the amount of space allocated for public benches or outdoor seating, places you can gather without having to pay to go into a restaurant. And this is all about activating the sidewalks. So this is, again, to give you an idea, of the uses of a sidewalk, and, start thinking about, well, what is this varying amount of space that maybe sounds like it's similar, just 3 feet different? What can you do here? And most of these are, I think, compatible with the 18 feet. So you can see, dining, the seating, special events, for example. Now let's look at the bike facilities. As I said previously, all of the bike facilities are protected. This is something that we've heard is very important from people. And also, it's really the only way to significantly improve what's out there now. There needs to be something that is protecting. They need to be consistent. They need to be up and down Hall and Watson the whole way, not just cutting off at random places. And then they need to be safe and comfortable for users of all ages and abilities. You guys are probably very aware that there are different types of bikers. There are people that are going to be out there no matter what. There's a wide swath of people that would be out there if they feel safe and comfortable within the facilities. And those are the people that we're really trying to target as part of this project. Let's go into a little bit of the options that we're looking at. And again, these mainly vary by the type of protection that's offered between where the bicyclists are and where the traffic is. The first is that protection is offered by way of a raised curb. This is a raised cycle track. Another option is having the bikes at the pavement level, but divided by a painted buffer and wand. Another variation is similar to that, but having a curb in there as well. And then just a curb and painted buffer. Let's talk about bus stops. We'd like to have bus stops that are places that are comfortable to wait, and also places where the shared space between bikes and stopping buses is managed better. So let's take a look at what we're envisioning as part of this project. For the lack of a better word, we call it a floating bus stop. These are, I think, just recently put in Division Street in Portland. So the idea is that the bus doesn't go into the curb, it stops in the lane, and there's a facility coming out from where the pedestrians or where the users wait to be able to load the bus. They cross over where the bike lane or the raised cycle track would go, and there's a series of paving and signage to make sure that when there are people walking in that area, that the bikes are yielding. The intersections are areas where everybody that we've talked to has mentioned them as a key thing that needs to be solved in order to really truly have the loop function and improve the situation for people walking and biking. The project envisions intersections where people in walking and biking are made more visible, there's shorter crossing distances, conflicts are reduced, there's more space at the corners for people waiting to cross, and we're leveraging signal technology. The project would be installing new traffic signaling. And there are a lot of these things are achieved merely by taking the cross sections that we described and passing them through these intersections. So let me show you visually two examples of that. Here's Watson and Canyon looking, north on Watson. The drawing is to kind of give you an idea of, hey, this space can look and feel a lot different just by having more space for pedestrians, just for having the markings on the pavement make it clear that this is a place where people that are biking or pedestrians are actually wanted. So there's a lot that can be done to improving the experience that is independent of the amount of time you're waiting or the amount of time it takes you to cross these facilities. It's really attacking what is your perception of your safety and comfort and the importance that you're being given as you're in these locations. Another example, again, now from a plan drawing looking down, this is Hall and Canyon. So you can see the existing, it looks like a very thin area that's given to pedestrians or even to bikes. Actually, there's nothing here given to bikes. And if you look at alternative, this is the alternative with 15-foot sidewalks, there's a lot more space there. There are places to wait as you're crossing the street. There are wider, more spaces that are delineated. So there's a big difference that can be made, again, just by following through the cross sections and painting, dividing the spaces that are for different modes in a clearer fashion. We're also looking at other things to do at intersections beyond just carrying through the cross sections. And some of these have to do with lane configurations. This basically has to do with the number of lanes that are passing through the intersection or the number of lanes from which a certain turning movement is allowed. There is a significant trade-off here between pedestrian safety, meaning the pedestrians are safer because the cars are not coming from two lanes. But as you would imagine, this could affect the number of cars that are able to cross through an intersection during a given signal, and especially during rush hour, there are queuing concerns. So this looking at these type of solutions require some traffic analysis that is not within the scope of what we're doing right now. It is something that, and I'll show you some drawings, it's something that we're contemplating and looking at, but it really does need to be studied further. So at this point, the feedback that we'd love to hear from you guys is, are we heading in the right direction? Are these things that you guys would like us to continue studying. So again, looking at Watson and Canyon, the existing lane configuration, you can't necessarily see the marking here, but you have 2 lanes coming south on Watson. You have 2 lanes from which you can take a left to go on Canyon East. One of the alternatives would say, hey, you know, let's just make it only possible to take a left turn from that leftmost lane. At the same intersection, another alternative here, alternative B1, which is the 15-foot sidewalks, basically says, hey, you know, in order to get that 15-foot sidewalk, we need to eliminate a lane here. So there'd still be 1 lane turning here. So these are the types of things that we've looked at when we're passing through the cross sections and looking at the plan drawings. But this is not something where, you know, we're in no position to responsibly be able to say, hey, you know, here's the benefit for pedestrians, and here is what the impact would be on vehicles at a local or even wider level. It's really something that needs to be studied further. Also along those lines are things that can be done with traffic signalization. I said, you know, as I said, the idea is to get new traffic signals in there that would allow us to more completely attend to the needs of pedestrians and cyclists. Some of these can be implemented really as a no-lose situation because they don't impact vehicles other than creating a safer place for them as well. And then there are others that, you know, such as a leading pedestrian interval or even changing the cycle times where, you know, you could improve the amount that, you know, lessen the amount of waiting for movements that are going north-south across these big intersections, but they would have impact again on a good amount of traffic that's going east-west. And this is something that, you know, it'd be nice to get some feedback about whether or not we're heading in the right direction, but it certainly would need to be studied further as a next step. Thank you guys. Geez, where did that other slide go? I'm sorry. Let me stop sharing. Sorry, thank you for your patience with the presentation. I'm going to just look here, Gene. I don't know what's going on right here. Oh, here we go. I think, let me go back here. No, that's not it. Shoot, I had a slide with questions on them. And I can't seem to find it here. So I guess what I'll do is I'll just ask them myself. The first question I have is, and I'm happy to flip back, I'm happy to share my screen again and flip back at some of the things that you said because it went rather quickly.
And Dan, I'll do a little quick time check here, and I'm gonna limit, we do not need to stop at 8:20. Maybe let's stop at 8:25, right? Just to keep us on time. Okay, I can do my thing in like this much time. So, great.
Okay, and I apologize, guys. I don't know what happened to the slide that I just put up, but the first question that we have, and Michael, you probably heard this question yesterday, is, you know, seeing these alternatives or the bicycle options in general, what are some things that that strike you as notable, you know, that kind of get your attention?
And I think we want this to be sort of quick around the table, right? Before we sort of dive in on deeper things. Anyone want to go first?
Sure, Ananda.
Ananda.
Two concerns. Unfortunately, downtown Portland, we have seen that the sidewalk has been taken over by people camping there. So widening our street to 18 feet, wouldn't it attract more people and they would just come and camp? Have you thought of that?
Well, that is a valid concern. We do live in the same area. Gene, I don't know if you had anything to add about that.
Yeah, you know, I don't, there's case law that is, you know, that limits the city's ability to remove people from camping on the sidewalk. And I don't really want that to sort of get into this space, but I'll just say concern noted around the amount of space on the sidewalk and the potential for that. So you said you had a second, Ananda?
Yeah, and also I bike a lot, and what I find is there is no restroom facility. The only one restroom is near the library. It's in a very bad condition. So I think we would need better restroom facility, because I do not see anywhere you address that issue in the slides, restrooms. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Two concerns.
that's very practical.
Thank you.
I'd say I like the concept of either the raised or having that buffering of some type. Certainly, I think we're at a point where having more of a physical separation of a bike lane from traffic is very valuable.
Thank you, Mike. Actually, that gives me an opportunity to ask one of the questions that we had was, there's the bicycle alternatives really don't vary by the width, but more sort of what is used to offer protection, the perception and the reality of protection between, the bikes and the cars. Looking at the options that you've seen, is there, which of them would make you feel, better protected or make you feel safer and more comfortable, riding in such a facility?
I think I said this last time this was presented, but I really dislike the curbs. Sometimes commuting, you need to move in and out of the lane of traffic and into the bike lane and vice versa. For example, people put stuff in the bike lane, like, parked vehicles and dumpsters and the like. So when you put a curb there, you're really creating a hazard, like a go over the handlebars hazard for bicyclists. And I kind of feel the same way about bollards. I really like the idea of a raised bicycle lane, just supporting Mike's comment. There's a terrific example of this out in Multnomah Village. If you haven't been out there, they've got a really nice couple 100-yard stretch with a raised bicycle lane that feels totally safe, and it gives you the option to move in and out of the lane of traffic and then back up onto the lane.
So what you're saying, John, is it's raised, but it's not a dramatic curb,
right,
that you're dropping off. I mean, is there any other, is there pavement markings or wands there as well, or is it just kind of a slight raise?
Just a slight raise. The texture is different. It's a lighter, like concrete type color versus the lane of traffic is an asphalt type color. But it's not that hard to move up and down. But it's really obvious, where bicycles go, where cars go.
John, is that on Garden Home? Is that the newer one on Garden
Boulevard?
Home? Multnomah, that's right, Multnomah. Yep.
It's, where the old
Yep. Oh, I know where it is. Yeah, the Army,
right there.
The reserve. Yeah.
I think that won a national award for one of the best, of that type.
Great. Thanks, John. Sean, I think you had your hand up.
Yes, actually, there's a couple of questions in the chat window.
Yeah.
There's one guy, James, he raised a question that the removing one lane of parking, it will definitely impact the available parking for the farmers market. That is, which is already very very crowded. And actually, I agree with him, and the consequence is that if the cars will just be circling around to find parking, it actually will make it worse for pedestrians and for the cyclists. And that's one thing. The other thing, we typically have pedestrians, cyclists together, but they actually have different. They have conflict of interest. They have different interests. Pedestrians may want to have a larger spacing in sidewalk, but cyclists, I think they want to have the continuous bike lane. They don't want to have some bike lane that's just stop somewhere and then in and out to a car lane. I think that's a different interest from pedestrians.
Great, thanks, Sean. Michael, I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak.
Sure.
Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, to just piggyback off of what John was saying earlier, I've been thinking a lot about the sort of bike facilities since the great presentation you gave yesterday, Dan. And I do kind of go back and forth between really valuing that sort of protection and wishing that there were sort of more ease of mobility. I believe I biked to Holbowl yesterday for lunch, went down Watson and cut across. And I think I brought this up last night too, but those left turns can often be tricky. And yeah, I think Amanda mentioned it at a previous meeting. She's given the 2 thumbs up. But I often find myself having to start cutting across halfway down the block if I'm to make that left turn. And I think I'm sort of thinking the trade-offs are, if you have a protected lane, I think that kind of forces the cyclist to basically dismount at the intersection and walk the rest of the way, which is not the worst thing in the world, but I don't know if it's sort of the intuitive way cyclists behave. I think often they want to ride up to their destination, but I'm still sort of struggling on how to square the circle on those trade-offs. I'm not sure if there's a great answer, but yeah, just from my experiences biking over
Well,
there.
the functionality is definitely something that, needs to be studied as we, go in even, place by place. Because you're right, you're not going to get to your destination, and, not to get to your destination just within the bike lane.
Did we hear from everyone? Amanda, did you want to chime in? I know you're busy note taking.
I really like that raised cycle track that was proposed, because in thinking about people of different ages and abilities, I'm not a parent, but I can only imagine that maybe a parent would feel safer having young kids on bicycles with them if they were physically raised up on that cycle track separate from the street, not level with cars that could possibly drift. So it might be perceived as visibly safer and therefore feeling safer.
Great.
Thank you.
I guess I just quickly throw in the one is possibility of somebody going off the raised cycle track and then they're immediately into a lane. So just is there a way to make it a more gentle, that it's easier to recover from versus going off a sharper curb?
Got it. Great. So some design, finer level of design thinking is kind of what I'm hearing from several of you. So there's I'm scrolling back through the chat, and I know
Me
that
too.
our visitors have been chiming in and others of you have been chiming in. Is there anything that we didn't, that was a question that we didn't cover?
There's something about reducing from 3 lanes to 2, John. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is one thing, the presentation didn't really talk about this because we wanted to focus on the alternatives to get your feedback, but in terms of the impact on the vehicles going up and down Hall and Watson, there's still going to be 2 lanes. The lanes are going to be 11 feet. Actually, right now, most of the lanes out there already are 11 feet. And the places where there are 3 lanes are these approaches to some of the intersections. I talked about the potential configuration changes. And then I think the other notable place where there are 3 lanes is on Hall north of Canyon. And it's hard to argue that 3 lanes are necessary right there. So that would be the one place where it would be going down from 2 to 3 lanes. And then the other is one, again, would have to be studied at the intersections. But the remainder of the loop, it would, in terms of the travel lanes, would be really, really unchanged.
Yeah, John, no data yet, but we'll get into it in the next phase of our project. Great.
I would say I really like the idea, if you have a flex zone, that it's opposite the bike lane, so there's no potential for getting doored or things of that nature.
Yeah, that was something we heard about in our CAC. In fact, I think Michael was the one who did a good job articulating that for the rest of the committee about that risk.
There's another place that it has a lot of traffic jam. It is north of the canyon, northbound from on the Hall Boulevard. That there's a car wash, and
yeah,
there's a lot of cars just in the line. So if we move from 3 lanes to 2 lanes, I can't imagine what could be the situation.
Yeah, I think I'll chime in and say there's an element there around sort of enforcement and people stopping in the lane. Really, people shouldn't be queuing there. But it's something that we're aware of. You know, it's close by here to City Hall, so I've seen that that behavior frequently. Dan, I don't know if you want to chime in anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's first of all, there's no bike lane there, which is kind of odd because there's, you know, one of the nicest bike stores right there. But you know, to me, it feels like the Indianapolis 500 right there. All of a sudden, you know, the cars are, you know, they've waited 2 times on the big intersections to get through, and then it's downhill with 3 lanes, and you know, that's just not. It's really just not a good situation safety wise all around. All the indications for vehicles are go as fast as you can right here.
Yeah. Great, thanks. Okay. Well, thank you all. Dan, any final thoughts or questions?
I'd like somebody to know where those 2 slides went, because I put them in before I went home, and I came back here and they're gone. Jean, I know you're in the office. Did you try to take those out for me?
No.
But hey, guys, thank you so much for your input.
Can I ask one quick
ahead, Mike.
question?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, as we looking at developing out wider sidewalks, are they also looking at business development in this area? Is that something, so as we build, we build it and they will come? I'm just kind of curious as we get the facilities, also having the businesses in that area, just from curiosity.
Well, I'll say a few things, and I'm sure, Jean, you can chime in. I mean, the idea is that this is a public infrastructure project that would complement, you know, private investment and try to attract it and would work well with it. And, you know, when you're thinking about the changes that would be made, especially in the sidewalk area, you know, it could be made as part of redevelopment as well. So it certainly, they need to be hand in hand. You know, there was a concern about, well, what happens if tents come up? We've heard concerns about, hey, what happens if we have sidewalks that are wide and nobody's using them? It feels kind of sad, you know, so, you know, it needs to be part of the same effort, you know, multi-pronged. Jean, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, you know, I'll say there's, if you think about the area around First and Watson, where actually the city has made quite a bit of investment in attracting those businesses. We've had a restaurant strategy, we've had a retail strategy. Those businesses aren't there just because they decided to land in Beaverton. There's actually quite a concerted effort from the city to really figure out how to create and activate our downtown. If you remember the downtown design project, I'd like to think that team probably came at some point when they were developing that. For those of you who are newer to the Bike Advisory Committee, that was a planning project that looked at the area of downtown and really sort of on the land use side, what would it take? What do we need to have in place to create more dense development and support the kinds of land uses so that we can benefit from the high level of transit we have with the max? Really, how can our downtown grow? And one really important outcome of that project was an update to our downtown development code. So when you think about the future of downtown, the zoning that we have in place now allows much denser uses, particularly north of Canyon. So in the area around City Hall, there's a lot of low density development and quite a bit of property that can actually be much more dense. That over time we'd like to see that transition to really be something much more of a downtown. And this is where sort of the loop becomes the complement to what could be in the future in downtown. So if that helps, yeah.
Well, thank you guys. I do want to say it's great to get your feedback, and also moving forward, you know, there's a lot of really detailed thinking that needs to go on. You know, just looking at the bike facilities is not just about width, you know, it's about the functionality. It's about how, you know, you get from point A to point B. So I would welcome you. You know, the presentation at the CAC and the slides will be available within a few days on our website. please feel free to take a look and, pass along any ideas, whether, they may be pictures of other places where you see facilities. Hey, this kind of looks good. This is a good time now to get us, ramp up our thinking with respect to what is an important mode here for the loop.
Great. Thank you so much, Dan.
Have a good evening, guys.
You too.
Okay. Great. I'm just going to jump right to my staff items of interest, or whatever it's called, staff report. I sent you all a few news updates this month that went out to all the boards and commissions and NACs. I'm not going to go through them too much, but just know that an update to the community vision is underway. There's the Visioning Advisory Committee that is meeting, and I'd say just be looking for more news to come on that front. City Council election filing is underway. So any residents that are interested in running for election can obtain their candidate's filing handbook, and the deadline and filing is Tuesday, March 8th at 5 p.m. So more information on our website about our open council positions and the elections process. And then there's a number of city council meetings this month on various agenda items. And I think what I want to highlight for you is that council is going to be reviewing and discussing their 2-year strategic goals and their priorities work plan. And that I believe that's a work session happening on February 22nd. And then I'm just going to share my screen real quick. And I had sent to all of you news. You probably heard in the news that Secretary Buttigieg from the United States Department of Transportation, they just announced their national roadway safety strategy. Maybe it was just last week. It's, to me, I think it's a really exciting and promising effort to see this come out of our federal transportation agency. I'll say I don't know yet what this means for Beaverton, but it's something that we're tuning into and watching, and we'll be learning more as the strategy rolls out. And then I just wanted to highlight again for all of you the Washington County MSTIP open house, online open house. If you go to WashingtonCoOpenHouses.org, that's how to say it. You can take that survey, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers, to let Washington County know what transportation priorities are important to you. So I'll stop with that. Hand it back to Mike.
Great. Thank you so much, Jean. For members, any comments, announcements, anything that you want to share with the committee? All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here tonight and giving all of your input on Dan's event, or it's not an event, the loop plan, and for participating with the Climate Action Task Force. I think that's going to be exciting going forward. And thanks, everybody, for all of your support while I've been the chair. And I look forward to Amanda and Michael taking the helm in March.
Hey, thank you to Mike for your leadership during this time, the past, what, year and a half? 2 years, year and a half?
Something like that. Kind of been the pandemic leader.
Yes, thank you. Okay.
All right. See you all next month.
Have a good night, everyone.